This is CBC Late Night News.
Good evening, I'm Magda Gebrselassie. Evacuations continue today in communities in northwestern Ontario. Nearly 20 forest fires are burning in the province, and one is raising a lot of concern. Red Lake 23 is about 700 square kilometers in size, and it's still growing. As Natalie Nanowski tells us, it's heading straight towards Kawhi First Nation.
This one here is really going.
All Dion Kakigamic has been able to do for the past few days is watch as the fire creeps closer to his community.
It's smoky. You can't go near the sand pit anymore unless you're wearing a mask, and because it's so thick. And it's that's all you smell is the smoke now.
He's one of just 8 people still in Kawhi First Nation. Nearly 500 were evacuated over the last few days, but Kakigamic works at the water treatment facility and has to keep it running so fire crews can do their job.
We have a couple of water bombers that are going to be coming in and just dumping their load, and then they'll be heading back out again because the lakes around here are too narrow and too shallow for the water bombers to continuously fight it.
Just 2 years ago, another fire swept through the area, destroying hectares of land.
Ontario, like the other provinces and territories in Canada, is built to burn. The natural environments have evolved not just to adapt to fire, but to depend on it.
A natural occurrence, yes, but for Kakigamic, a scary one.
I didn't think I would have to go through this again, especially so soon.
Crews from Alberta, Quebec, and even Minnesota have been sent in to help fight the fires in the province.
We've been using structural protection, sprinkler systems to help protect structures in the area, and using aerial ignition to try to drive the fire to natural boundaries so it won't be able to spread.
Kakigamic is also praying for rain, and he might just get some as early as tomorrow. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
A car crashed into a home in Mississauga this evening. The crash happened in the area of 10th Line and Tack Drive. Police say 2 vehicles were involved. One person had to be extricated from the car and taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. An engineer has been called to check on the structure of the home. Police say there was no one in the home at the time. Now, believe it or not, this was the second time this happened today. 2 men were arrested after a car crashed through the front of a home in Etobicoke this afternoon. The crash happened on Royal York Road, south of Evans Avenue. Police say witnesses reported seeing the car traveling at a high speed at the time of the crash, and that the driver and the passenger left the scene carrying open bottles of alcohol. Police tracked down the suspects and arrested them. Miraculously, no injuries were reported, and police wouldn't say if anyone was home at the time. Well, OPP are searching for a missing man in Bruce Peninsula National Park. Police say they were called Saturday afternoon for a man in distress in the area known as the Grotto. They say the man jumped in the water with a friend, surfaced, and then showed signs of distress. He then went under and failed to resurface. The OPP's Marine Unit, Canadian Coast Guard, and staff at the park searched the water and shoreline, but couldn't find the man. Well, a Canadian courier company says it has now fired an employee accused of assaulting a driver in the downtown core last week. The video posted online Thursday appears to show a cyclist grabbing a man and pulling him to the ground. This is in the area of Bremner Boulevard and York Street. Police say that after a verbal confrontation, the man got out of his car, and that's when he was assaulted by the cyclist. The president of QA Courier confirms to CBC the suspect is an employee of theirs and that he has been fired because of the incident. They say as far as they know, he's not turned himself into police. It's being investigated as an assault with a weapon. Well, now let's take a look at our first forecast. Here's Winston C. with more. Winston?
Well, conditions pretty nice in the GTA this weekend, with the exception of some rain that came through. This is what your weather forecast looks like for Toronto as you wake up Monday morning. 18 degrees with sun, winds coming in from the north. But take a look at the satellite radar as it continues to push through. Not too bad. This is the area of high that pushes down and is going to be a pretty dominant story for your week. So conditions are going to be dry and going to be warm and not as hot and humid as we have been used to this past little bit. This is what temperatures are going to look like for your Monday into your Tuesday, pushing about 25 degrees as a high, which is not too bad. And we've got a nice drying condition thanks to this ridge that sets up over the region. And then as we take a look at this is for your next wave of heat this week. We've got a continental high bringing drier heat setting up over the east as well. And then for your temperatures on your Monday morning, we're looking at 18 across the board, cooling a little bit as you head up towards Barrie, 18 for Whitby, 18 towards Belleville, 18 in Niagara Falls as well. But sun across the board, can't complain. And then as you head into the afternoon, temperatures pushing into 26. Coming up, I've got your long-term forecast. That's coming up.
Thank you, Winston. Well, Rogers Communication customers may be having some trouble making phone calls tonight as the company works to repair a countrywide wireless outage. A post on the Rogers website says a national outage of the company's wireless service is causing some customers to report difficulties placing and receiving calls. They say their techs are working to fix it. Confused by the construction at Union Station and which way to go? Well, a new glass-covered underground path has been opened to help customers access the TTC more easily. You can find it running under Front Street. Metrolink says passengers will be rerouted to the north exit of the York Concourse while work continues on revitalization projects around the area. If you need a little more help getting around, you can look out for signage, and City and TTC staff will also be on hand. Well, most of them aren't old enough to vote or run for elected office, but they believe their voice matters. Toronto's new City Youth Council was sworn in today. As Kelly Ewan reports, it aims to stand up for the concerns of young people across the city while encouraging more of them to speak out.
From Ward 13, Andrew Chang.
It began with a swearing in, just like regular city council. The difference here, everyone is under the age of 25, many still in high school. These are Toronto's newly selected city youth councillors, representing 25 wards. They were elected via an online vote.
Youth are very unique stakeholders in politics because they have to live for longer with the consequences of current day politicians and the decisions they make. But we're not of the age to vote. We're not of the age to run for elected positions. We don't have power in that sense. And so we have to do other things like join councils and do protests.
That's exactly what Kyra Menezes has done. And today, she and the rest of the Youth Council got to meet with Mayor John Tory.
Your own view. I'd want to hear from you honestly about this.
Because we need to hear from them about the things that they care about, like climate change, like people getting along in a diverse city, like job opportunities.
Indeed, everyone here has their own personal causes.
For me, I'm really passionate about access to education and the different opportunities and resources that schools in different places get.
16-year-old Marwa Buthahar hopes in the coming year she can further engage in the topic with her fellow youth councillors and the mayor.
What are the actual steps that we can take to improve our education system for everybody?
For Patience Evagru,
we need to be heard. The youth are the future, and the future is now.
She believes the first step is to ensure youth in her community understand that they have a voice.
Because a lot of the youth are okay with the situations that, happen in the city of Toronto because they believe that they have no voice. But that is wrong. They have a very strong and powerful voice. And once we create spaces for them to be able to use their voice.
The City Youth Council plans to meet once a month beginning in September. Mayor John Tory says he is committed to meeting with the group at least twice during the term. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, this weekend was all about food, fancy footwork, and some fun. That's just some of what was featured during several of the festivals taking place. And our Hawaii Fidel stopped by some of the events to take it all in.
Oh, it's hot. we're happy.
The summer weather and what's known as festival season was in full swing this weekend. At Taste of Lawrence in Scarborough, this woman says she found the perfect treat.
Nice, delicious, literally just fresh fruit with like ice in it.
And for these girls, the Food and Cultural Festival has become an annual tradition.
It's like the whole community gets to get together and basically share what Canada's all about.
You get a lot of variety of flavor, cultures, you get a whole this mishmash of what Scarborough has to offer.
And that's exactly what organizers say is the goal of the festival.
It's all about family, it's about unity, it's about peace, it's about celebration, it's about bringing people from all around the world together.
Meanwhile, across the city, the good times continued at TD Salsa in Toronto.
I love like the little salsa stations because I really like dance, so like it's really cool to see like that sort of aspect of it.
Festival goers enjoyed the music and the food at the country's largest Latino-themed festival.
It should be a public holiday and everybody come to this.
For these friends, salsa in Toronto was another reason to enjoy the warm weather.
I mean, the last week has been great, so we've been outside all week with the kids.
With more festivals happening next weekend and temperatures expected to reach high 20s, Torontonians can expect another great weekend coming up. Hawaii Fidel, CBC News, Toronto.
Protesters head back into the streets of Hong Kong over the controversial extradition bill. It's the first rally since the storming of the legislature earlier this week. Plus, Iran says it will begin enriching uranium beyond the limit set in its 2015 nuclear deal with world powers. What does that mean for the once historic deal? We'll have those details coming up after the break. Welcome back to some international headlines now. A bombing in Afghanistan has left at least 14 people dead and 180 wounded. It happened near a National Intelligence Agency office, but many of the wounded were children attending classes at a nearby private school. Most were hit by flying pieces of glass and wood. The Taliban has claimed responsibility. A current wave of violence has seen attacks carried out almost daily. Washington's campaign to pressure Iran is getting fresh pushback. First, Tehran began to stockpile uranium, and today it announced increased enrichment in violation of the 2015 nuclear accord. The CBC's Arthi Pol has this look at what it could mean.
The message in Iran is clear. They aren't looking to play games. They say by morning, uranium enrichment will have surpassed 3.67%, the limit imposed on Iran under the accord. The Trump administration withdrew a year ago and has since imposed punishing sanctions, blocking the country's oil sales abroad. Iran is also frustrated with the remaining signatories of the accord, saying they have failed to protect Iran's economy from the American measures. That frustration has turned to anger.
We've had about 2 months now of a number of activities that the Iranians and the Americans have been at each other in the Persian Gulf. Tankers have been hit, likely by the Iranians. A drone was shot down, an American drone. And all of that, I think, is meant to put pressure on the Americans and the European allies.
But the pressure today is so far symbolic. The increased enrichment nowhere near the 90% needed to make a nuclear warhead.
It's a relatively modest step and should be seen for what it is. It's not a non-proliferation or nuclear crisis. It's really an effort at diplomatic brinksmanship.
Iran better be careful.
A warning from the U.S. president today amid fears the tough stance from the U.S. could lead to a military conflict.
They better be careful.
There is just so much friction and tension between Iran and the U.S. and their respective allies in the region. And there's no channel of communication and no mechanism for de-escalation, no off-ramps really. Even a conflict can happen inadvertently.
European nations are trying to mediate. The French president spoke to Iran's president, trying to reopen negotiations. Trump said today that Iran will never have nuclear weapons, but Washington's next move at this point is not clear. Arthi Pol, CBC News, Washington. Hong Kong's streets were once again filled with protesters. More than 200,000 at least, according to organizers. The message by now, very familiar. But as Sasha Petrovic tells us, there was a new target audience today.
Hong Kong's grievances echoed through the territory's tourist district today, a stream of young and old, a sign that this movement isn't backing down, even if friction with police has become routine along the way. There have been some concessions from the Hong Kong government, but no guarantees that democratic rights are safe from Beijing. Still, protesters say they're determined.
At least I have to do the thing I need to do, and this is my responsibility to protect it. Yeah.
As a Hong Konger?
As a Hong Konger.
These protests have been going on for a month now on a regular basis, overflowing the streets. They've been done out of exhilaration and frustration, but for all of this excitement, they have left this city very much divided. Hong Kong's pro-China voices held their own demonstration last week, and Beijing supporters here insist all those who fear China have just been brainwashed by the West.
What I mean by brainwash is that negative news were injected into young people and into the entire population by a very popular newspaper every day. And people were just online reading all the negative news without anything positive to balance it out.
Things have become more confrontational as some protesters lashed out at the Hong Kong government, vandalizing the legislature a week ago. Many peaceful protesters here today don't support that, but they say it's a reaction to hostility from the police. And tonight, the march did end like this. Sasha Petrovic, CBC News, Hong Kong.
There was new criticism of the Donald Trump administration today, but it wasn't meant for public consumption. It was written by a British diplomat, and it surfaced in a series of leaked emails. The CBC's Dominic Velitis reports from London.
They were written by Sir Kim Darroch. He's Britain's ambassador to Washington, and they cover a lot of ground, a lot of subjects. But we can show you just one example now. It reads, we don't really believe this administration, the Trump administration, is going to become substantially more normal, less dysfunctional, less predictable, less faction-riven, less diplomatically clumsy and inept. Now, these emails have surfaced just weeks after the president's state visit to the UK, and in another message, Sir Kim said that Trump was dazzled by his trip, but warned the White House remained self-interested, that in his words, this is still the land of America first. In another message, the diplomat slammed US policy on Iran as incoherent and chaotic, and he even gave his assessment on those allegations of collusion between the president's election campaign and Russia, saying the worst cannot be ruled out.
Now, that was Dominic Velitis in London. African leaders took a decisive step towards the creation of a continent-wide free trade bloc. Leaders met in Niger and signed an agreement to formally launch the African Free Trade Area. They also worked at hammering out exactly how the trading zone will be worked. If successful, the agreement will form the largest economic bloc since the creation of the World Trade Organization in 1994. Well, that's former Raptor Danny Green hitting the hard court with some kids at his basketball skills camp in Vancouver. We'll tell you what else he had to say about his time playing in Toronto after the break. Some sad news in the entertainment world. Actor Cameron Boyce, best known for his parts in Disney Channel shows and movies, has died at the age of 20. The young star suffered a seizure due to an ongoing medical condition. Boyce made his acting debut at the age of 9, then made his way to star in television shows like Jessie and Shake It Up. He also played Adam Sandler's son in the Grown Ups franchise. Well, if you're still wallowing in Raptors misery, well, you're not alone. Fans across the country have been saying goodbye to Kawhi Leonard. The star forward is joining the LA Clippers after just 1 year in Toronto. Raptors coach Nick Nurse shared his reaction to the move at the NBA Summer League in Las Vegas.
Not totally surprised, right? I think we all knew that it was a situation that could happen, and yeah, he delivered big time, right? Played his heart out for us. We certainly are going to relish this championship for a long time. We got a tremendous challenge ahead of us, but you know, I always say that the challenges are our fuel, right? And the tank is certainly full right now.
We also caught up with Danny Green today. The now former Raptors shooting guard was in Vancouver this weekend. He's been touring across the country this summer, hosting a basketball skills camp. Now, he wouldn't comment on the Kawhi news specifically, but did talk about how it felt to be leaving the team and what it was like to play and win in Toronto. Have a listen.
It sucks. I think a lot of people hoped that we could run it back, but you know how the business goes. Business is business, and it doesn't work out the way you plan most times. But you know, that team is still going to be very good, and you never know in the future. We maybe get those guys back, you know, together again. You never know. It was amazing. Everywhere we went, people were, you know, in awe. People were yelling. People were cheering. People were rooting for us, and they were just happy that we were there and made it there. But you know, lucky enough we were able to get it done and bring the first championship back to the city. I think it's a memory and a moment that people will remember forever.
Green announced yesterday that he signed a 2-year, $30 million deal with the LA Lakers shortly after news broke that Kawhi was leaving. The Great Wall of China dates back centuries, and it's beginning to show its age. Weather and the high volume of tourists contribute to the damage. Last year alone, the busiest part of the wall, outside of Beijing, attracted over 10 million visitors. Now the government is capping the daily number of visitors to 65,000. It's also going back to more traditional repair techniques, like using hoists to replace older stones. And that's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. You can always stay caught up on the news anytime on our website, cbcnews.ca/Toronto. And as we say goodnight, here's another look at people out and about enjoying all the festivals happening around the city. Have a great night.